Guys, I'm in love and it's with Price Labs. That's right. I've started using Price Labs. I moved over from Beyond Pricing. I'm going to tell you why. And I'm also going to show you a couple of the awesome features that Price Labs has so that you can get it started in your business, whether you have 1 unit or 100 units. Price Labs is going to be amazing for you. I'm going to give you a promo code as long as you stay to the end here. And I want to show you exactly why Price Labs is changing my business. Let's get to it. Go ahead and subscribe and comment on this video. If you're not using Price Labs, tell me in the comments why you're going to start using it today. So I know the first question is, well, why would you switch over from Beyond Pricing to Price Labs? Don't they do the same thing? Well, at the end of the day, it's kind of like comparing Airbnb and VRBO. There's some things that you like about Airbnb. There's some things you like about VRBO. There's some things that you don't like about both. So for me, I'm looking for 2 major things. One, is it going to do what it says it's going to do? And number 2, what's the customer service like? Because we're talking about technology. We're talking about something that is going to be impacted and not work the way it's supposed to. And so if customer service is not there within a reasonable amount of time, we lose money. And so at the end of the day, Beyond Pricing was a good tool, but it wasn't great when it came to both syncing calendars and customer service. I'm sorry, that's just how I feel. I apologize if that hurts anyone's feelings, but that's the way it is. And so for me, Price Labs right away matched both of those and went above and beyond my expectations when it comes to that. So I want to just show you very briefly a few things that I was struggling with and how Price Labs has really solved that issue. So the very first thing is what we call these Orphan Days. Orphan Day, I'm not a huge fan of the name, but Orphan Days are a real thing. And if we don't get them filled, then we lose a lot of money in Airbnb. So if you see here, I have a long stay followed by a block date because we set those for our cleaners to do a deep cleaning after a 30+ day stay. But then we have this 1 day gap here. Well, before, when I was doing this, let's just call it without dynamic pricing, I would have to go in and I'd have to manually click on this. I'd have to say, okay, we're going to go ahead and set the rule for a 1 night stay. I'd have to do this all manually. Then I brought in Beyond Pricing, and sometimes it would open up the gaps. Sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes it would do it immediately. Sometimes it would take 12 hours. And the unfortunate thing was I could never get an actual answer of why is this sometimes happening and why is it not sometimes happening. By the time Beyond Pricing had finally responded, it was 24 hours later and the problem magically fixed itself. So after doing this for about 5 months, even though we had had a process in place of going in and if there was a minimum day, we'd manually unblock it, I started to realize that's the exact same thing as what we were doing before. This isn't really automating it as much as I wanted to. It was helping me make a ton more money. I'll tell you this, Beyond Pricing, when I was using it, I was making about 15 to 20% more than I typically would have if I just manually priced my properties. So already it was working in that regards, but in regards of automating this process and not having to touch my calendar, really not having to look at my calendar, it wasn't necessarily doing the job. Now you see, if I look at this, there's no minimum stay blocks. If we did have a block, it would show, and it would actually have a little black bar here that said minimum night requirement or minimum stay requirement. But these little 1-nighters, if we scroll down, another 1-nighter, it's open. You know, this is music to my ears, seeing all these 1-night stays open, because that means that the quote unquote Orphan Day settings in Price Labs are working. And so I don't have to touch this nearly as often. So with that being said, I'm going to show you how to be able to set those, but I want to show you, before we get into how Price Labs works, a little kind of side by side of Beyond Pricing and Price Labs. Now, I know there's other options out there like Wheelhouse as well. I'm just focusing on these 2 today. So here is a side by side, Price Labs on the left, Beyond Pricing on the right. This is basically our home screen of all of our listings. Now, again, if I were you, I'd get started on this right away. Start with 1. I started with 30 listings and it was a headache trying to learn all this because you make one mistake on one listing and you're making a mistake on 30 listings. If you make one mistake when you're doing one listing, and you can kind of, you can get in the flow of it by mastering one, just like I teach all the time: master, automate, scale. You master this, you figure out how to make it work on its own, and then you can add on more properties. That goes for all parts of your Airbnb business. So the one thing I love, I will say, about Beyond Pricing, and I still use it for this reason, is their health score. The health score is not just saying, hey, how is your property doing? It's saying, how is your property doing compared to the market that you are in? So this one right here, you see two numbers. You see 53% for the next 30 days, and then you see 22% occupied for the next 90 days. Now, I don't know if that's good or not if I'm just basing it off of those occupancy rates. But with Beyond Pricing, they say, hey, by the way, you're in the 96th percentile for all of your properties in that area based on your next 30-day occupancy rate and your next 90-day occupancy rate. So that is a really valuable thing, and I still use Beyond Pricing for that. But if you see, all my pricing postings are off here because all my pricing postings are on Price Labs. So what Price Labs shows you instead is a little color-coded number system that is essentially telling you how booked or how vacant you are. So in 7 days, in 30 days, and in 60 days, which is, by the way, customizable, you can change that if you'd like, you can see, hey, there's 14% of the next 7 days that are open. In the next 30 days, there's only 3% of days that are open. And then the next 60 days, there's only 13% of days that are open. So in my mind, looking at this, what we call the Pink Door Studio, that's actually pretty good because we want to get booked, right? Well, let's look at it on Beyond Pricing. This is why I like to use both of them now. Pink Door Studio, going down, going down, going down. It's actually only priced as a 55 over here because it's essentially saying you're too booked. You are way too booked. You're 96% booked in the next 30 days and you're 66% booked in the next 90 days. That is too far booked out. That means your prices are too low. However, I know because of my system of this being a 30-day rental, we're attracting a lot of nurses and they're going to book at 3 months at a time. So I'm actually really going to ignore this score because of that reason. However, if this was a 3-day minimum and I had, call it 20 different groups that are booking in those 90 days, then yeah, I would know that I'm probably priced too low and I should change my prices. So I hope that's helpful. The other difference here is that if you can see, we're in groups. I can make a customizable change to all of my properties that are set into a certain group. So I have my studios and 1 bedrooms. I have my 3-bedroom and 4 bedrooms. I have my Bass Lake properties, which is a little town outside of where I'm at. And then I have my 2-bedroom locations. So I basically can make all these changes to just one set of properties based on the trends that I see for those properties. Now let's go ahead and focus in strictly on Price Labs because that's why you came to this video today. If you want to learn more about Beyond Pricing and if that's maybe a better fit for you, then by all means, go ahead and check out my video on this channel. It's called Is Beyond Pricing as Good as It Sounds, or something like that. Go ahead and take a look at it. But I will tell you this. Everything's been syncing up better. Everything's been working better. Plus, I'm paying pennies compared to what I was paying on Beyond Pricing. Beyond Pricing will charge you as much as, well, it charges you a flat 1% of your gross amount, where Price Labs is going to charge you very much a sliding scale based on the number of listings that you have. In fact, let's go ahead and just show you what the pricing is. This is a really cool tool. You can just go to hello.pricelabs.co/plans. And it'll show you basically what you can do. And by the way, I have my 30-day free trial down in the description below. Go ahead and click on that. You can start for free, try it for the next 30 days. It shows you a few different things here, but what you just really want to do is go down here and say how many listings you have. So if I put in 1, it's going to be $19.99 a month. If I have, call it 10, $134 a month. If I have 100, it's only $644 a month. Guys, let me put this in perspective for you and show you my calculator here. For example, I pulled in 160,000 of gross in July on beyond pricing. For 1%, I owed $1,600. Now, today, I have price labs, and it doesn't matter how much I made. For those 30, I want to say 6 that I had at the time, I'm only paying $324. Do you see the difference there? That's almost a 5-fold difference. And I'm getting better results too. So anyway, okay, so let's start with the basics of getting a listing added on Price Labs. This is super simple, and it is a lot of fun to be able to start setting this up. So you go to add your listings, you go to select your PMS. Most of you are going to just click on Airbnb. It's going to ask you to log in. I actually use IGMS, so I logged in from there, and it just pulls all the data from there, and voila, you have all of your listings right here. Now you can manage your listings very easily. If you don't want to see some pop up, if some are no longer active and you want to delete them, you can select them and delete the listing. But you can show the listing here. You can do a few different customizations. I'm not going to go too much into that right now, but just going back to, I don't know why that's not showing up. I'll just click the back button. Going back to reviewing prices, which is where you're going to spend most of your time on this page. And let's just start. Oh, come on. There we go. Review prices. Let's just start with one of my properties here. I'll start with the, how about Garden Sage? Click on review prices. And the first thing that's going to happen when you first set it up is this is going to be off. Okay. So right away, you want to select sync prices. You're not going to sync now. Now, what happens is if you just click on sync prices, it's typically going to refresh itself about once a day. However, if you click on sync now, everything that you do will be synced right away or within minutes. So immediately it's going to say, hey, when you first start off, it's going to have this like guesstimated base, and it's going to have nothing for the minimum. And you'll see all these prices. So in August, I'm already completely booked up here. So let me go to September. There we go. Okay, we're already booked up through September. That's awesome. All right, so if I go to, in fact, let me use one that's a little bit more priced out appropriately for the next few days. But if I just wanted to refresh it and then click sync now, I can do that. But let's use one that's maybe a little more vacant for the next week or so. Okay, here's a good one. So again, when you first start off, this is going to be synced off. This is just going to have a base guesstimated price based on what you have already in Airbnb or whatever OTA you're using. And there won't be a minimum price quite yet. So you kind of look at these prices and you say, hey, okay, my base price is 132. It's pricing me out at 130, 131, and 142 for the same week. And then you can see exactly why it's pricing you out on these types of things. It's going to go and look at the market demand. It's going to look at market factors. It's going to go to pricing and customization. As you can see here, we ended up getting booked. If you look, most of the prices here are between about 150 to 170. But then over here on Labor Day, we got a lot higher because if you look on the market demand there, it says holiday and event, it's Labor Day. So we're going to get higher prices because of that. So it just automatically starts pricing it for you. And it's going to, take this minimum and it's going to say, okay, I don't want to go beyond that 127. So here's a few different dates that are in lower demand. We're going to price them a little bit lower. But over here, wow, the weekends are great. And you can even see they're color coded here with these light green or low demand. And then the dark blue is really high demand. And there's some other ones in between. So with all that being said, you can, if I wanted to change this, so let's just take, for example, hey, I think this is being priced too low. Let me go 135 instead of 132, save and refresh, and let's see what happens to September. All right, so September now changed a bit. We made a $3 adjustment, and now we're seeing a few different days that are a little bit higher. So we were seeing, like 180 over here on the weekends. Now we're seeing in the 190s. So it's going to make those minor changes for you across the board, which is pretty cool. But then over here in the customizations, we can change. Now, I have the group customization set to 3-bedroom, 4-bath, but you can do an individual customization that will override this group customization if you want some minor things changed over here. So if I click on edit, let's just go through a few of these things. So last minute prices. If we wanted to fix this, I already have it fixed. Okay. So in my group customizations, I already have it fixed. I believe it's 25% within 5 days, it's going to get dropped. But if I wanted to turn this on and change this and say, hey, this one, I only want to drop 20% rather than the rest of them that I'm doing at 25%, I could put in a fixed, I could put in a flat, or I could put in a gradual. Gradual means that, like let's say, for example, I want to do 25% within 5 days. Well, within 5 days of that, maybe a few days before, it's going to start gradually coming down rather than just this big spike down instantly 25% within 1 day. So that is how you can use those. Then on the orphan days, just like we talked about, orphan days are days that you want to make sure that are open, but also they're usually a little bit tougher to book. So maybe you want to bring down the orphan days and say, hey, let's bring down orphan days 10% because they're a little bit tougher to book 1 day rather than 3-day stays. And that's for gaps less than or equal to, if you wanted to say 3 days, if you wanted to say 2 days, if you want to say 1 day, what is an orphan day to you? You can completely determine that when it comes down to whatever you want your discounts to be. Minimum stays. This is great because this is what I love about Price Labs compared to what I was doing with Beyond Pricing. Beyond Pricing, I could set seasonal dates. So if I wanted to say, hey, August 1st to September 1st, I want a 30-day stay. And let's say on that day that I was doing that, it was June 1st. So 2 months ahead of time, I was trying to set a 30-day stay. Well, if I wanted to keep that trend going, I would have to go into Beyond Pricing and manually change that. So on June 1st, 2 months out, I was setting a 30-day minimum. Then on July 1st, I'd have to go in there and I'd have to reset the dates. I have to do that all manually. On this, we can do it based on what date it is today and the trend that we want to continue. So for example, minimum night stays, if we want to do a 1 night minimum, let's say, for example, right now, like this one is I believe this is a 3 or a 5 night minimum as an overall booking, as an overall listing. Let's say that it's now the same week and I have 4 of my 7 days are vacant. Well, I could do a 1 night stay within as many days leading up to that as possible. Hey, it's the same week. I'm kind of in, let's just fill all the gaps mode. Let's go ahead and say every time we're within the same week, we have a 1 night minimum or maybe even a 2 night minimum. We can do that. What if we want to do a far out booking? So a far out booking, you can determine how many nights in advance is that. So right now, let's just say far out to me is 40 days. So I want to have if someone's booking for 40 days, I want to make it worth my time. I want to make sure they're not holding other people back from booking. And since I have let's just call this listing as a 3 night minimum, I want to say, hey, if you're booking 40 days out in advance, I want you booking for at least a week. And that's what that's set up for. Or maybe you're a little more conservative and you say, well, 3 is my default. So why don't I go with 5 for 40 days out? That helps me a little bit. But for my super far out bookings, let's call it maybe 60 days. Now I can do that 7 day, maybe even 10 day or 14 day. This is the big customization that I do for groups, because my 1 night or my 1 bedroom, my studios book out for a lot longer than my 4 bedroom or 5 bedroom places. So I like messing with the minimums for the group customizations. And then of course, the orphan nights. Now this is something that took me a while to understand. And so I really want to take a second to really explain this to you. But an orphan day, obviously, if we have a 3-day minimum, right, then we want to have those 2 night gaps filled. So let's just take, for example, and I'll go back to my calendar here just so you can get a visual of this. Let's say, for example, going back to calendar, if all my places are 3-night minimums, okay, then this, for example, would not be Orphan Days because that would be a 3-night minimum that can be filled with a 3-night stay. Let's say that, again, right here, we have a 3-night minimum for this one, but we have a 1-night stay open right here. So for this, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, what do I want this to be? Maybe even it's a 2-day. So I'm going to go over here to Price Labs. That's beyond pricing. Where'd you go? There we go. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say, okay, so this is typically a 3-night minimum. Do I want to have my minimum, my gaps that I fill? Do I want them to be just ones that are under that? So if I have Monday through Wednesday booked and then a 2-night gap, and then so that leads us Thursday and Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, Monday is booked. Now I have a 2-night gap. I would say, hey, I want my 2-night gaps to be filled. So anything between 1 to 2 nights needs to be filled. But maybe you have a 3-night gap and you're thinking to yourself, well, the chances of me having a 3-night stay on those exact nights might be a little bit difficult. So instead, I might say, hey, between 1 to 3 nights, I want to fill gaps. And then you're going to decide how many days the minimum stay is for those gaps. So if you want it to be a 1-night stay, if you want it to be a 2-night stay, or if you want it to be the length of the gap -2 or the length of the gap -1. Now, these are really favorable for, I would say, anything between 5 to 7-day stays, these -1, -2. Where everything else, I would probably stick to just defining what you want the gap to be. So on this one, I would say it's a 1-night gap for either gaps between 1 night and 3 nights, or 1 night and 2 nights, depending on what you prefer. So once again, what that's going to do, if I have a 1-night minimum for a gap that's between 1 and 2 days, then over here on my Airbnb calendar, I'm going to see, because this is a 1-night gap, it is going to stay a 1-night stay. This is a 1-night gap as well. It's going to become a 1-night stay. Okay. So this, I hope that makes sense. That took me a little bit of time to understand what that exactly meant and what that formula is. For you, if you're doing 30-day stays, this becomes a little bit more difficult, because now you're looking at filling in gaps that if there's a 15-day minimum, it becomes a little bit tricky. So this is definitely favorable when it comes to 7-night minimums or below. Then you can change the day of the week pricing. You can change that based on percentage. If you want your Mondays to be 10% lower, if you want and you're going to put a negative 10%, if you want your Fridays to be a positive 10%, you can put all of that out. If you want your minimum far out pricing, if someone's going to book far out in advance, I want them to pay a premium, because they're getting my place locked down far in advance. So I want them to be able to, I want to make sure that I'm not getting robbed far out in advance. So I can do a change in the base price, I can do a change in the minimum, or I can do a fixed and decide that based on again, this is the far out pricing, which is going to be equivalent to what did you set your minimum stay for far out bookings. So 40 days is what I would probably do over here too, but you can decide how many days you want that to be. Maybe you want that to be different over here. The minimum weekend pricing, it's already going to automatically price things higher. But if you want to be even higher on the weekends, you can do that here. Again, fixed or change in the base price based on percentage. Weekend days, you can decide, is that going to be Friday and Saturday, or does that include Sunday for you as well? Okay. So you can actually set those standards. And then the occupancy base adjustment, this one I haven't gotten a whole lot into. This is probably something that I'll eventually look at, but you can definitely take a look at these and how it just automatically changes some of your prices and some of your settings. But this for me is something that I've kept off so far. I feel like I've got a good handle on what I know that I want my my occupancies and my settings to be. And then Seasonal custom profile. This is something that you have to do. If you're going to do this, you got to do it for the entire year. You can't just do one set of dates. It wants you to do it for the entire year. So let's just say I call this my hot season. I call this my normal, and I call this my slow season. And it might not be as cut and dry for your area. You might even have to add more seasons. Maybe you have like a medium low, maybe you have a medium high, that kind of stuff. But let's just say that my hot season is January through May. And I'm going to just say May 1st. And I can go fixed price or percentage. I'm going to go percentage and continue. And I'm going to say, okay, it's my hot season. So my minimum is going to be 30% higher. My base price is going to be 30% higher. And my maximum price is going to be 30% higher. And then my normal season is going to be, call it May 2nd through, let's just say July 31st. And I'm just going to say it's going to be exactly what it is right now, or 1%. So I'm going to take $100 and I'm going to multiply it by 1%, which means that it's going to be 101. That's just my normal season, pretty much already working off the base price. But then my slow season is going to be August all the way through December 31st. Let's call it the rest of the year. And let's say that's going to be a negative, how about 15%, negative 15, oh geez, negative 15 and negative 15. And then you can save seasonal profile, and there you go. So these are all the things that you can customize. Now, I'm not going to save any of this. I'm going to close all that down, and I want to make sure to see that that was not saved. Yep. So all those are off, but you would save that at the bottom, and it can override what the group customization is. Now, you probably just noticed, because of all that, you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I could see a group of my properties going by the same set of rules. And that's what's great about Price Labs, is that you can go to customizations, you can create a group, and you can do all of that for a specific type of group. Maybe it's the type of bedrooms, the type of amenities they're offered, maybe it's the location, whatever you want it to be, you can name it. And then when you go to your managed listings, you can go over here and you can decide which group it's going to be a part of based on the listing. Pretty cool. Now, there's one more thing that we can do to override any of these. So we just talked about, the group customization, we talked about the individual customization, but if I wanted to, I could override what I'm already seeing. Hey, I like the rest of my calendar. I like what September looks like. I think those are fair prices. However, this week, I'm trying to get these booked right away. I haven't gotten these booked. Today is August 18th. I'm not booked. I feel like this is a little bit too high. Why don't I select all of these? In fact, with that being a weekend, I'm probably going to want to keep that one the same. Why don't I select the next 2 days and just say that the price is $127 instead? I want to get those booked out, and I feel like 134 is too high for the same day. Now I can override that and say it's 127. Or if I click on it, I could also say, well, I want it to be a minimum 1-night stay rather than a 2-night or 3-night. I believe it's already updated as a 1-night stay. And so, yeah, you see the 1 night with 127, I overrode that as well. The last thing I want to show you is the neighborhood data. I think this is really valuable. And what it's going to show you as it loads up, it's going to just basically pull all the data from what our calendar is priced at, and it's going to compare it to the neighborhoods. So this is a 4-bedroom location. So I want to go ahead and select that I want to apply and compare it to other 4-bedroom locations. And we're going to look at a few different lines here. We're going to look at the 50 to 75th percentile, the 25th to 50th, your booked occupancy, the market occupancy. And then really what I'm looking at the most is, what is your current price versus what is the recommended current price? So for example, today I mentioned is middle of August. So let's just go ahead and take the next, let's say a week from now. So the 75th percentile price is 211, which just basically means the top properties in the area are being priced out at $211 on average. The recommended price, which is that solid black line, is $199. My current price is $187. And then the 50th percentile is about 179. And then below that is 161. So what I'm seeing here is I'm above the average. 50th percentile is about average. I'm above that. I'm below the recommended price, and I'm below the market percentage, sorry, the 75th percentile for the market. So long story short, I think that I can probably get my prices a little bit higher. So maybe I go and I change my base price. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a lot of different prices here. If I'm consistently, if you notice that my current price is always in the middle there, then maybe, and it's even lower right there, maybe it's time for me to go ahead and up my prices. Because as you can see, I'm never really that dark gray box is never really moving up to the top two boxes there. If I'd ideally like to be where that recommended price box is right now on this view, I don't necessarily want to be the top. Unless I'm getting booked out really well, then I can keep it at the top. But this one is just kind of averagely getting booked out. So to me, I want to probably move my prices up a little bit. So let's go ahead and go back to the calendar and say, okay, 135 is fine, but it's telling me to raise it. So let's go 139. Actually, let's even go 141. Save and refresh. I always like to save and refresh, then check the data, and then sync now. So saving and refreshing, going back to the neighborhood data. Again, I'm looking at 4 bedrooms. Okay. And let's see how that adjusted it. So current price, it's still hovering a little bit low there. But I did make a significant change right there. I just went from 135 to 141. Maybe I want to see how that goes. And if it just continues to get booked out at higher prices, maybe then I'll bump it up. But I still don't like the fact that my box is a little bit lower here. Keep in mind too, that this might take a little bit of time. There we go. That's bumped up. This might take a little bit of time to refresh as well. But then occupancy down here, it also shows you, hey, you're booked 100% on August 29th. The market average right now is 43.8%. So this shows you kind of how you're compared to the market in regards to occupancy. And again, just there's a few other things that I think are valuable about this, but those are the main things that you can compare. So hey, am I overpriced? Am I underpriced? Or am I just about right? Before I get too complicated there, I just think that that's a good place to stop. Price Labs is an awesome tool. I hope that you see that. And it takes a little bit of time, right? You got to get used to it. But when you do get used to it, this becomes a tool that helps you save tons of time, helps you make more money, and allows you to be able to do that at a really reasonable price with great customer service too. So I fully give my endorsement to Price Labs. As you will see on another review that I did of Beyond Pricing, I gave hey, it's a good tool. It really is a good tool, but I give my full endorsement to Price Labs. So go check it out. I've got my free 30-day trial link in the description below. Click on that, get started today. If you don't like it after 30 days, you can stop using it. That's it for this review of Price Labs. Go out there, conquer the world of Airbnb. We'll see you next time on The Fearless Investor.